So Greedent is one of the Pokemon that is part of the Gen 8 wave in Pokemon Go here. And of the Pokemon that came through with this first Gen 8 wave or Gen 8 sprinkle, however you want to put it, I feel like Greedent has the most potential in PvP in both Great League and in Ultra League. And in fact, in Ultra League, especially Open Ultra League, Greedent is one of the top Open Ultra League Pokemon, actually. This cute little squirrel is kind of doing it all. So as such, I decided to do a PvP IV guide for Greedent because it's so good for both the Great League and the Ultra League. Also, if you want information on all the new Gen 8 Pokemon in regards to how they perform in PvP, as well as future Gen 8 Pokemon to come, I have the article linked in the description at GamePress covering all of the Generation 8 Pokemon that are good for trainer battles, the ones that are out now, and the ones that will come in the future based on their current Game Master information. So link in the description to that. And also, if you're curious about Zacian in raids and in PvP, I also already did a video on that, so link up above and description to that video as well. And also, if you're curious why I don't have my video up this time, I'm visiting my parents for the week, and I didn't bring my camera with me. I could use my integrated laptop webcam, but it's super bad. So I think you guys can deal without a little Ryan swag this time around. So when it comes to Greedent's stat line in Pokemon Go, it's a relatively low attack, low defense, high stamina Pokemon, which generally bodes really well for PvP, and I guess for gym defense too. I haven't really thought about Greedent yet as a gym defender, but I imagine it would be kind of an annoying gym defender because normal type Pokemon, right? So yeah, its stat line, its stat product, if you will, ends up being comparable to Snorlax in both the Great League and in the Ultra League, which is good in the Great League because it's a different kind of Snorlax, and in the Ultra League it's kind of rough because it ends up being a much more expensive Snorlax. You can see at level 50 it's hitting that 2600 CP. So yeah, this is definitely a XL, big XL type Pokemon for the Ultra League, which I personally am starting to get a little bit sick of. Then when you look at Greedent's move pool, you can see why Greedent is a PvP relevant Pokemon. It has Bullet Seed for the good energy gains, and then for the charge moves, it only has 2 charge moves, and that's Body Slam and Crunch, and that's quite literally the only 2 charge moves that Greedent needs to be good in PvP, being another body spamming Pokemon like Snorlax and Lickitung and Vigoroth in the Great League and Ultra League of Pokemon Go. What makes Greedent kind of interesting here too is that a lot of those Pokemon use Lick as their fast move, which is a high damaging move, but it has relatively poor energy gains. Bullet Seed has relatively poor damage, but really good energy gains. So compared to Snorlax and Lickitung, it's more of a body spammer than they are. So that does give Greedent a kind of different flavor when it comes to these matchups, and it also makes Greedent a lot more deadly when it has a energy advantage over the opponent because you're going to be whapping them with more charge moves than usual. And it's in this way that Greedent is able to stand out in the meta and be such a powerful threat in the Great League and in the Ultra League. When it comes to the Great League, Greedent compared to Lickitung, Lickitung has better steel type matchups, grass type matchups, and a better matchup against Toxicroak in particular. And then Greedent has better water, ground, and normal type matchups. When you consider the normal type Pokemon, you're resisting their licks, and you're hitting them back with the neutral Bullet Seed, and then you're also hitting them with Body Slams a lot more quickly. So yeah, against Lickitung, Munchlax, and Snorlax, Greedent generally has the advantage there. I'd say overall in the Great League, the XL Lickitung is generally better than Greedent, but Greedent is a lot cheaper to build and poses some interesting advantages over Lickitung. And if you get a couple fast moves of an energy lead, because that is an energy lead with Bullet Seed, that is a pretty big deal for Greedent, and I feel evens the playing field in a pretty big way. So if you haven't built a Lickitung, hey, Greedent is here, Greedent is cheap, Greedent is ready to rock and roll. So when it comes to breakpoints for Greedent in the Great League, there are 2 ways that you can flavor Greedent. There is the slight attack weight, high defense Greedent, and then there is the relatively high attack weight Greedent. And you really can't do kind of both at the same time. So if you want to get the advantages of each Greedent, you may end up having to build 2 Greedents. So first up, talking about the slight attack weight, high defense Greedent. the attack weight that you want to try to aim for is about 105.82 to roughly 107 for the attack weight. I wouldn't go too much higher than 107. I feel like 108 might be pushing it a little bit too much. At that point, you may as well just go for an attack weight Greedent. At any rate, what this slight attack weight can get you is a consistent breakpoint against Swampert. So the rank 1 Swampert, you need the 105.82 to get the breakpoint on it. So against lesser Swamperts, like the rank 1 Greedent, will be getting this breakpoint anyways. And then to go to like the 107, that is to secure a breakpoint against Vigoroth and Melmetal as well. When it comes to Vigoroth and Melmetal, it doesn't exactly flip any even shield scenario matchups, but in those uneven situations, it could help Greedent get ahead. And when it comes to this attack weight, it is a ever so slight attack weight. It's not hard to get higher than a 105.82 attack weight. It's just that a lot of the top rank Greedents, for example, the rank 1 Greedent, only hits 105.8. Not 82, 105.8. So it does miss that breakpoint against Swampert. And then if you do titrate it up just a little bit more to like, maybe, 106.5, something to that effect, which is like roughly the rank 17, for example. So it's not like you're dropping all this bulk to get this ever so slight attack weight. It can help out against the Vigoroth and Melmetal matchup. The big ticket item here, however, more so than the attack weight, is going to be the defense weight, where you're going to want to have at least a 108.78 defense. I'd say probably shooting for 109.73 if you want to be super cautious. And as you can tell, like rank 17, for example, has 110.74 defense. So it's not really hard to hit the attack weight and the defense weight. It's not like you're pulling teeth here. Most, high weight Greedents should be able to hit that. But if you don't have like a super good rank Greedent, at least hitting that benchmark defense of 108.78 is a pretty big deal. And then of course 109.73 if you want to be that much more consistent. What these defense weights gets you is defense breakpoints against Altaria, Meganium, and Vigoroth. There are other Pokemon that you can get defense breakpoints on as well, but these three matchups are probably the most consistent for that, especially when we're talking about Altaria, where if it gets a Dragon Breath breakpoint on you, then that's just not good. That is an ungood thing to have happen to your Pokemon. So once again, the relatively slight attack weight, I'd say 107 attack at best, but going for like, 106.5 or 106.25, that's probably fine. And even if you don't hit that attack weight, the more important thing for Greedent here is going to be hitting that high defense stat of about 108.78 to 109.73 defense. Now, usually I give you guys canned IVs for this stuff, but when it comes to this split for Greedent, 190 out of the top 250 Greedents hit that defense stat of a 108.78. And when it comes to the 109.73, 158 of the top 250 Greedents hit that as well. So it's not hard to hit these defense and attack stats. It's relatively easy. So it's very likely if you already caught like a whole bunch of Greedents, or whatever the heck the pre-evolution of Greedent is called, if you caught those, you probably have it. So you're good there. Then moving on, we have the second flavor of Greedent for the Great League, and that is the attack-weighted Greedent. The attack-weighted Greedent wants to hit an attack stat of about 109.93 attack at the minimum, and at a maximum, 111.03 attack. You really don't want to go too much higher than 111.03 attack, because then you are going to be trading a pretty significant amount of bulk. I mean, to hit even the 109.93 attack, you're going to be trading a lot of bulk, but hitting this breakpoint can be significant in the Diggersby matchup and in the Umbreon matchup. The Diggersby matchup, you're probably going to hit no matter what, as long as you have a 109.89 attack. When it comes to Umbreon, the rank 1 Umbreon will get the breakpoint at 109.93, but as you know, with my Umbreon PvP IV deep dive, I've been advocating for the high defense Umbreons. So if you want to guarantee that you get the breakpoint against Umbreon, that's where the 111.03 attack comes in. The main reason why I'm highlighting this attack breakpoint is mostly for the Diggersby matchup. As you guys may be familiar, when it comes to more limited formats in the Great League, Lickitung ends up standing out in a pretty big way. Greedent is kind of like a side grade, if you will, to Lickitung. So if Lickitung's better than usual, then Greedent is going to be better than usual. And when it comes to these limited formats, Diggersby is usually one of the top dogs in the format. So in these limited formats, there's going to be an increase in Diggersby running around. So getting a breakpoint on that Diggersby can be a pretty big deal. To add to that, it can be difficult to hit the defense stat with this attack weight. So, Altaria, Meganium, Vigoroth may be less of a concern in these limited formats. So that's another thing that kind of gives credence to going for this higher attack weight. The Umbreon thing is just kind of gravy. And if you like the Umbreon breakpoint, or you feel like Umbreon's frequent enough in whatever format you're playing in, then yeah, it can also help out there too. Now with this attack weight, you can double dip. You can go for the high defense weight on Greedent as well. You can hit like the 108.78 defense and hit the attack breakpoint as well. But you are going to be trading a lot of HP. And what you wind up with is kind of one of those goofy IV spreads where you've got like super high attack, super high defense on your IV, and like basically abysmally low like HP there. And when it comes to trading that like HP and defense, it is a little bit unclear exactly like where the exact HP cutoff is, like how much HP you really want to have on your Greedent. That's not really 100% clear on this Pokemon. So it's like, we do know that there are those defense breakpoints, but now you're trading all this HP, so are those defense breakpoints as relevant because you're trading all this bulk already? And I'd say it's kind of up to you as the player to decide if you want to try to double dip, get the attack and the defense breakpoint, or if you want to have like good defense, good HP with the attack breakpoint. At the end of the day, I really couldn't say one way is objectively better than the other when it comes to the attack weighted Greedent. And then as far as canned IV spreads go, this attack weight isn't that ridiculous to hit, and there are tons of Greedents that can hit that. Checking the Go Stadium PvP IV rank checker, a lot of the Greedents I was looking at were like in the rank like 1,000 to 2,000, and given the limitations of the tools that I have, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, the best Greedents that have this attack weight as well. So just, check on Go Stadium IV Checker or check your stats on PvPoke. If it's got like that bigger attack stat and it's got a big defense or a big HP stat, basically if like the attack IV is like greater than 10, just punch in the stats and see if it hits well. Try to go for a Greedent that is closer to 1,500 than the other ones, so you're at least getting the most out of your Greedent while also hitting that attack breakpoint. That's the way I would approach it. And then just to clarify, to reiterate here, is the attack weighted Greedent better than the rank 1 Greedent? Not exactly, but I guess if you're talking about the Diggersby matchup, then yes, I guess it is better than the rank 1 Greedent, specifically for that matchup. But in most other cases, like the high rank, the big defense, big HP Greedents, they're generally going to be better, but they're kind of generally as good as any other Greedent, especially when you consider Greedent being as a safe swap Pokemon, getting that one fast move advantage. The energy advantage kind of matters a lot more than Greedent stats at the end of the day, so you really don't have to split your hairs too much on the IVs. So if anything else, at the end of the day, if you're only going to build one Greedent, I'd probably go for the attack weighted one, just so you can get that advantage over Diggersby in those limited formats. But I still advocate for building 2 Greedents for Great League. Then when it comes to Greedent in the Ultra League, it's kind of a better Snorlax. It's kind of hard to say that it's a side grade to Snorlax. I'd say Snorlax is kind of a side grade to Greedent. And then comparing the two Pokemon, Greedent has a better dark and water type matchup than what Snorlax does. And that might become like a little bit of a surprise because it's like, well, they're both body spammers, but Snorlax is slower on the draw with the charge moves, and a lot of its damage comes from Lick as well, which the dark types resist. So Greedent actually ends up having a better dark type matchup, being able to flip matchups that Snorlax can't against Umbreon and Mandibuzz, for example. That said, Snorlax does have a better matchup against Obstagoon because Superpower is double super effective against Obstagoon there. This doesn't mean that Snorlax is completely out of the picture here. Greedent can struggle more against Steel and Grass type Pokemon and has a overall worse Gengar matchup. So I'd say maybe in PCUL, they're kind of on equal footing. But when it comes to the Open Ultra League, I'd say Greedent has a couple more advantages up its sleeve than what Snorlax has. One big thing that Greedent also has going on is the Dragon Breath Giratina matchup. Snorlax can kind of struggle against that, especially if it's not packing Outrage or Earthquake, where Greedent, it's got Crunch. It's not relying on its fast move damage to get the job done with completely useless charge moves. It has a useful charge move against Giratina. So yeah, it has a significantly better Dragon Breath Giratina matchup and a better Giratina matchup overall compared to Snorlax. Now when it comes to Greedent's IVs in the Ultra League, I'd say there's 3 layers of snobbery. Like how high end do you need your Greedent to be good in the Ultra League? How much XL Candy and Stardust do you want to put into your Greedent? And I guess like what IVs can you get away with if you don't have the upper echelon of super high bulk Greedents, right? So layer 1, the most thrifty, if you will, would be a 141.6 defense stat. And with that defense stat, with having, more of a kind of optimized IV spread, you're looking at a 47.5 plus level Greedent here. So it is still a pretty hefty investment. You are saving roughly 94 candy compared to like the level 50. So, that is a pretty big gap when it comes to the XL candy, especially depending on like where you live in the world. You don't have spawns happening all the time for you. You can't catch like a whole bunch of Greedents. So I'd say if you are getting thrifty with Greedent there, 141.6 defense is kind of the benchmark I would start out with. And if you are going for this more thrifty Greedent, it is a lot easier to hit a slight attack weight on it too. A 139.11 attack stat, roughly around that area, can get you a breakpoint against Empoleon and Gallade, which can help out in the 2-1 matchup and the 2-2 matchup specifically. And I'd say the advantage is pretty like non-significant. It's not that big of a deal. Having that attack weight doesn't make you better than the rank 1, for example. But also to that end, as long as you got the 141.6 defense, you're really not quote-unquote worse than the rank 1 either. You're kind of on equal footing with it. So it's just if you are thrifting, it's easier to hit that attack stat. That attack stat may have an advantage for you, so you may as well try to hit it if you're going for this more thrifty Greedent. And as far as canned IV spreads for this one goes, like 129 of the top 250 Greedent IV spreads will be hitting that defense stat. So you're very likely going to get that defense stat. There's too many numbers to put on this screen. Then the next layer of snobbery for the Greedent is going to be a 143.1 defense stat. And the only matchup that is really relevant for this defense stat is going to be a highly attack weighted Dragon Breath Giratina altered form. Like just about every other defense breakpoint is going to be covered by the 141.6, but if you want that extra level of consistency against Dragon Breath Giratina, and you're also not losing any matchups by going for this higher defense either, then you will want to try to hit this defense stat here. And here I have the 25 IV spreads that do hit this defense. And I also have highlighted the ones that hit above the 139.11 attack stat, so you could maybe get that attack break point against Empoleon and Gallade, and that could potentially matter. Even though the attacks are highlighted, I wouldn't say that these 4 spreads are any better in the grand scheme of things compared to all the other spreads featured on this list, so I wouldn't get like all worked up about them. If you got any of the 25 IV spreads on this list, then that would be a very, very, very good Greedent to build, as so long as you have the XL Candy and Stardust and don't mind powering it up to level 49.5 or level 50. And I think now is a pretty good time to mention as well, the Best Buddy Greedent can hit like higher bulk than these Greedents can, but the Best Buddy is completely pointless, so I really wouldn't waste your Best Buddy on Greedent. I'd much rather use your Best Buddy on something that can benefit from it more, such as Umbreon, for example. So yeah, no point in Best Buddying the Greedent. If you got the rank 1 Best Buddy Greedent, I'd probably build a different Greedent because it's kind of pointless. And then finally we have the third layer of snobbery with Greedent IVs. And this is the same IV list as I just showed you, but refined. for the attack tier stat advantage, if you will. Basically, like just a more refined version, like the best of that group you're gonna find here. So if you are a super snob or you want to be extra picky about who you XL to like level 50, then I'd go with these IV spreads. Once again, the rank 78, it has that attack weight. It realistically isn't any better than any other Greedent featured here. And then when it comes to like layer 2, these spreads really aren't like quote unquote, like they're not objectively better, or I guess they are technically objectively better because they've got like quote unquote better stats, but I mean the performance isn't going to be much different than the layer 2. It's just if you want to be extra picky about it, I'd go with these IV spreads. And then kind of to wrap up here with the Ultra League Greedent IV spreads, you really don't have to be all that picky at all in general. If you do want to build Greedent on a budget, like if you don't want to go for these high IV ones, or if you really do want to use Greedent but you don't have enough XL candy yet, and you'd much rather go for the 143.1 plus defense Greedents, and you want to build a budget Greedent, I'd say whatever Greedent you have like lucky traded or something to that effect, like a really cheap to build Greedent, like level 44 Greedent, I think that'd be as good as any other Greedent for the most part. Like the 141.6 defense is phenomenal. It catches a lot of defense breakpoints, but if Greedent does have a slight energy lead, which it can easily get as a safe swap Pokemon, it's not that big of a deal. So if you've got like the lucky hundo or whatever, and you don't want to get like 200 more XL candy to actually use Greedent, I think, like the lucky Pokemon, those are going to be fine budget builds for Greedent. Of course, if you want to take your Greedent even further beyond and have it be like a super top performer, well then going through any of the 3 IV spreads that I talked about in these sections here, that would be the ideal for Greedent. And that's all I gotta say about Greedent. Of course, once again, if you want to know about all of the Gen 8 Pokemon and how they do in PvP, and the ones that haven't even come out yet, link in the description to the Game Press article covering every single Gen 8 Pokemon that has potential in PvP. And if you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. That says Snorlax. Greedent, on the other hand, can struggle against Steel, Grass, and Gengar type Pokemon.